Says we're live.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi there, everybody out there. Introductions, yeah?
Oh, we're good, yeah.
You're live. Get it, man.
Hmm?
Okay.
All right.
So I'm Josh Fischer. I'm the product marketing manager for X-Rite here in the U.S., obviously, because my name tag says so. And we're here with Jeff Lazell. Jeff has been working with X-Rite for a while. He's been part of the X-Rite family for even longer, using products for, since you were in college, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And all the whole time I've been with Fred Marcus Photography, we've been using X-Rite.
Mm-hmm. So we're kind of going to have a hangout with Jeff where we're going to talk about pretty much his workflow and how he uses the X-Rite products to, I don't want to say make him a better photographer, but make his photography more consistent and more accurate. And that's really what we strive for at X-Rite.
Right. And I like to say it gets you to the fun part quicker.
I'm going to steal that. That's a good line.
Yeah, because the fun part is messing around with your photos, not making sure your color balance is right. And so this gets you through that whole part when you first start to the filters and the retouching and all the better stuff.
Right. I mean, personally, I think the calibration part is incredibly fun, but I'm literally paid to say that. So.
Yeah, well.
Right.
If you like flashing colors, it's for you.
Oh, it's definitely for you. That's exactly what you should be doing. Yeah. So, people are into flashing colors. This is your chance. Go buy an X-Rite product, and we guarantee you will be happy. People who are looking for accuracy in the colors of their photography, making sure that from capture to edit to print, that you're getting repetitive, accurate colors. Also, X-Rite. That's who you want to be looking for. So,
I totally agree.
So, Jeff, I guess for me, I always like to kind of start at the beginning, and we make it pretty easy. And for me, that beginning obviously is the capture side of it.
Agree.
So, how do you start the process? What's your first step? What do you do?
Well, the first step, it still amazes me sometimes that you have to drive this point home, is make sure you're capturing in RAW. Managing color for JPEGs is possible, but it's tough, and it's tough to get it right. And honestly, it takes longer because when you allow your camera to capture in JPEG, it throws out all that good information that you want to work with later, and then it's just not there, and you kind of just, already you're starting off on kind of like a hobbled foot, and you never want to do that.
Right.
So,
you want to go from the largest amount of colors that you possibly can to the smallest that you have to, and capturing in RAW is going to make sure that you get that full palette of colors. You have everything available to you. And
most likely you probably paid all this money for a camera that can do that, and so not using that is, in a sense, a waste of money.
Obviously, yeah. That's definitely true. I definitely agree with that.
So now, moving on, let's just say, yeah, everyone's capturing in RAW, and it's an ideal world. We're all capturing in RAW. What I've found, the easiest thing, and actually this probably is the most powerful, but sometimes it's about breaking a habit, and that's including the Colorchecker passport when you shoot. It's super powerful, it's super useful, but it's just something you have to get yourself in the process of doing, is remembering to take those test shots. So actually I have one here with me. I could hold it up to the camera.
I bet you I can match this. Ready?
Yeah. There we go. So everyone knows what this looks like now. And so like I said, this is a set of calibration cards that you're going to include when you're shooting. Every type of lighting situation you're going to encounter, you're going to include one test shot with this. It's not like a gray card, if anyone remembers using those. It actually has a gray card back here too for setting custom white balances in the camera. But that is up to your camera manufacturer about how to do that. So just check your manual, use that. And then... Or
go on YouTube, and you can go to the X-Rite channel, and there's tons of videos done by lots of our professional photographers on using the Colorchecker in their workflow.
Fair enough. But so then the other two, the more exciting cards, the more colorful cards, are really where the powerhouse comes in on this. And so, we can start with the top guy, because that is a little bit more easy to understand. And actually, I can go through this. I have a visual we can use rather than me just keep holding this up and pointing to it. So give me 1 second, and I'm going to screen share that.
Cool.
Just a little bit. Let's see.
Oh, look at that.
And here we go. Can you see the Colorchecker password? All right. Let's see if I can make it full screen. Oh. How does that go? You good?
No, I think it's shared to your other screen.
Okay. Well, we'll just have to deal with it little.
Yeah, that's fine.
How's that? Okay. So the top card, which is actually 3 separate things. On top, you're going to have the set of colors, and that's mostly for reference. If you're shooting something where you have a very specific color you want to get to use, this is what you're going to use later on in your raw processing to sort of check that color against these constants you know you have. And then on the bottom, similarly, you have black to white for checking your highlight detail and your shadow detail. If you're one of those people that likes to use the so-called blinkies in your camera, the exposure warnings, you'll actually be able to use this as you're shooting to see if you're too far out of your accepted range.
Is blinkies a technical term?
I think it is. That's how I was taught it that way. So I hope people know what I'm talking about. But, and then after that, we have what's called like the creative white balancing tool. And again, so this is, you take the test shots of this and you bring the test shots into however you process your RAWs, be it Photoshop, Lightroom, really any program that has a dropper tool for the white balance, and then you can use these. And so the 2 highlighted are neutrals, and that is actually surprisingly useful when you think about it, how much time you spend, I call it picking and hunting, when you're trying to set a white balance in the RAW. You have that little dropper, and you're like, is your shirt white enough? Not really.
Right.
And you bounce around. And the problem is that, like I said, working for Fred Marcus Photography, our business is predominantly weddings. And you'd think that it'd be super easy to set a white balance off the bright white dress. And it's not. It's really rarely white.
Right.
And then again, you set that wrong white balance, you stumble from right out of the gate, and then your color is going to sort of like blossom incorrectly.
Right.
So
right. You're shifting it in the wrong direction by choosing the incorrect white point. And that's always, photographers, even non-wedding photographers, always go, well, I use the white of the eye. Yeah, that's not white.
Or teeth.
I use the white of teeth, but they're not even close to white. Yeah.
No. And then, and it's funny, when I first started, using this, you realize how much quicker it goes if you're not spending time looking for something to set it off. If you have that constant, you can go right through, again, get you to the fun part quicker.
Right, and I like the concept of bouncing, where you can actually select the different temperatures, making sure that you're getting to the right place. And I think you were there, Jeff, at Photo Plus. We met with photographer and Colorado Vincent Versace, and that's what he was talking about, where he actually will select different patches from here, making sure that he's finding what best suits from that image on. So he's not just going to say, well, this is it. He's actually going to choose and see which one works best, because sometimes, you might want a different look.
Exactly. And like I was just about to get to the extra patches that are with it for, moving stuff around.
Mm-hmm.
There are patches up top for warming and patches in the bottom for cooling. So yeah, you can see here, when I shot this girl, I was shooting her headshot, and she was just a little bit pale. And in truth, people like warmer photos of themselves. It just seems to be like a rule. Again, working in weddings as long as I've had, people, even if it's not exactly neutral, people like a little bit of a warm look. So then you can move up incrementally through the passport swatches to kind of tweak that in, and then again use it as far as you goes. And then in the bottom, conversely, there's a cooling one, which mostly I've only ever used for landscapes and stuff like that. I've never really needed to cool down a person. But again, it's really useful, and because you can use these universally, what you choose, you can then apply to all the photos you shot in that lighting situation.
Right.
And then like especially if you're going to be working in HDR or pano seaming, being able to do stuff like this really make sure that everything matches, so you don't have problems later where like the sky tone's off a little bit different or colors wander and stuff like that.
Right, and that's what we really promote when we talk about the Colorchecker Passport. For me, it's the accuracy. That's what I push the most, is making sure that you're capturing colors accurately. And obviously, the second one, it's kind of the soft sell or the silent sell. It speeds up your process, because when you set the standard from the very beginning, you're not touching every single image one at a time and correcting them all. That would take forever.
It's
Yeah,
amazing how much time you lose doing that. I mean,
Right.
especially in a high volume studio like I work in, it's an immense amount of time, especially when weddings now with memory cards and stuff like that. We're getting weddings. Our average wedding is 800 proofs to the client.
Yeah.
And that's down from 2,000 that we have to go through.
Right.
So being able to use this across the board speeds up so much, and that's time is money.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
Literally.
Literally.
So I have to go on and talk on a little bit about the bottom part,
Mm-hmm.
the color checker, right? And when I first started using this device, I'll admit that you kind of stick to the top, because it makes sense into how you first started working with setting white balances and stuff like that. But when you start using the bottom card to create DNG profiles is when you really start to see the power of this device. And honestly, I didn't even know how off I was until I started making DNG profiles.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see if I can bring over to Lightroom for a second. I can show you exactly what I'm talking about. Let's see if the Hangout lets me. So I'm going to turn off screen share for a second. Here I am. I'm back.
There's Jeff.
I'm going away again.
Yeah.
So, where is Lightroom? Here we go. And so the process is actually way simpler than you think it is for creating these DNG profiles. I think this is actually a part where some people get tripped up because it's not in everybody's workflow. But again, making this a habit, making this a color habit, makes it so you just stop thinking about it. And another beauty of this device is the more you use it, the more information you have to pull from. And so, like we said before, I can just bring this up really quick. Bring this guy into develop. So this is like a sample test shot that you would take. And this is just outdoors, sunlight, 50mm lens on my Nikon D700. So first what you can see is that, like I said before, there's no hunting and picking. You can know exactly where to go to neutralize it. But then, like we said, you can move around, and if you watch up in the left-hand corner, you can see the white balance shift as I go through the different patches.
Mm-hmm.
Then, what you're going to do is you can use the profile, the plugin with Lightroom, and you go to just export. And you're going to choose it as the X-Rite Colorchecker passport. And this takes a couple minutes, so I'm not going to make everyone sit through it now. And Josh, you've probably seen it 1,000 times.
I have literally seen it 1,000 times.
Yeah. So now, what's great about this is now I have a profile for my camera in daylight with my favorite lens. You can see right here I named it D700 15mm daylight. Shoot in daylight a lot. Even if you, for some reason, don't get a chance to remake a test shot, now you have this in your Lightroom ready to go. So later on, actually I did take a test shot. Let's see. It's a wedding I shot. First shot with him, made him take the test shot, and I was really lucked out on this wedding because he is wearing ridiculous colored pants, and the car is really bright. So this is a really great way of seeing how much of a difference the profile makes. So this is, I did my white balance, this is neutralized, the whole thing. You can see now when I shift from Adobe Standard to the profile I've already made, how much the color actually changes. And it didn't look bad before, but now I know my colors are exactly on.
Right.
And I know that I can use that for every, I go over to the other ones I shot, hit sync, now that portrait session is color corrected.
Right. A small technical note. If you're not seeing a shift on your screen, it could be possible that your monitor is not calibrated. I know that it is very unlikely because everyone calibrates their monitor at home. But if you're not seeing, it could be that. But there is a subtle shift. You'll see it in the blues, and you'll also see it in his lovely salmon-colored pants.
Rhode Island red.
Yeah, we're gonna go.
The wedding was in Rhode Island, so I can do it one more time if you want to say it again. So this is Adobe Standard. This is the camera calibration that Lightroom automatically does. It's built into the program. This is the one I made using the Colorchecker passport, and I mean I'm sure you can at least see there's some kind of shift, even if your monitor is not calibrated.
Yeah.
And another really powerful version of this feature of this is that at the same time, another photographer was shooting the bride across the, completely different spot. But when he gave me his RAWs, he gave me a test shot with the Colorchecker Passport, so that I can now make a profile for his camera, which you can see is a completely different camera. It was a 5D Mark III. I made him a profile and then used that profile the same way, but now I know our cameras will exactly match color-wise because we're going back to a constant. And
Right,
so if I now give out a bunch of proofs, all the color through whichever camera, whichever lens is going to be the same.
Right, and that's something, I mean, that's very, very common. A two-camera shooter now doesn't have to go through and match images to images from different cameras because there will be differences. I mean, if you take two 5D Mark IIIs or two D800s off the assembly line, even one after the other, they're still going to be different, and over time, they're actually going to grow in different directions.
Exactly.
So using a tool like this is going to make sure that you're getting accurate color across multiple cameras, and that's, again, time saver, huge time saver.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I mean, especially we have at Fred Marcus, we have sometimes 4 shooters on a wedding, and no one agrees on equipment. It's just not a thing that photographers do. So
Right.
being able to do this, and then also have them, because we do all the processing for the photographers. So make these profiles again. I now know how Herman's Nikon reacts, and I now know how whoever's Nikon reacts, and I know that they match, and that's so much less of a worry. And nice, consistent, giant stack of proofs.
Right, right. And I think that's one thing you brought up earlier, forming that habit, making sure that you're getting accurate color. Because when you start it from the beginning, you know at the very, very least you're capturing it from a safe place. You're setting a standard by shooting the Colorchecker Passport or the Colorchecker Classic. In your shot, you're setting from the very first step, those colors are going to be set. You're going to be able to correct to those colors or correct to the ICC standard, the International Color Consortium, no matter what camera on you're, no matter what environment you're in, no matter what lighting you're using. You're now going to be able to line them up to make sure that everything matches each other, and you're not going to spend hours and hours editing them back to a place where you're just kind of guessing.
Right. I mean, it's important to remember nowadays that color is just math. And it's a crazy amount of math that I can't do. I mean, I don't know how many photographers are great at math, but this does it for you, and you can be confident in the numbers being right without actually having to, do the numbers or anything like that.
Right. And I mean, that's whenever I do the presentations, I always joke when we do show the colors on the screen, that's all it's doing. When we look at the Colorchecker Passport and you go on the third row, the third color in, we see blue. But that's actually 300 blue, 17 red, 45 green. It's an exact color number, and we're going to test to that exact color number because our software or our plugin in Lightroom or Photoshop is going to know exactly what it's looking for. And if that color number is not correct, we're going to shift it to make it correct.
Right.
Right. So from there, now we did the camera.
Mm-hmm.
What is your next step? What do you do, Jeff?
Well, we talked about processing the RAWs. So now we're saying that our RAWs are processed and we're ready to go that next step, right? And you brought it up, monitor calibration.
Yep.
So this is kind of where you run into this weird sort of like digital darkroom world. And I was lucky enough to come up in that sort of middle spot in photography where I learned, film and I learned digital and was able to go from there. And when I entered the industry, it was like a big, weird transition period. Guys that have been shooting 2 1/4 Hasselblad, Tri-X film, whichever, for 20 years now have like a whole new realm to get into. And I think that some of the habits that these photographers had, the good habits from the darkroom, didn't transfer so much over into digital. And so I find it a really useful way in my head of framing my workflow like it was a darkroom. So I guess to clarify that a bit, like when you were working in the darkroom, you knew that your developer needed to be at a certain temperature. You didn't really know exactly why chemically, but you knew that's where it had to be, and so you made sure to work around that to make sure it was at that chemical temperature for optimal results. And so now instead of chemical baths, you have monitors. And that monitor needs to be, well, at a certain temperature, like literally, color-wise, and luminance and all those things. And so the way to get around that is taking those habits you had in the darkroom, whichever, chemicals, light, sealing, all that stuff, and sort of move it over to your digital workflow. And so monitor calibration using a device like the X-Rite Color Monkey Photo, i1 Display, Display Pro 2, and the Smile. Oh, I Josh is holding.
Right. Let's do. So this is the Color Monkey Smile, right here.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Color Monkey Display. Jeff, you have an i1 display, I think?
I do have an i1 display.
Yeah. It's almost like we're prepared for this.
Hmm.
Minus the 12-minute gap in the beginning.
Yeah, well. We'll blame that on Google, not on X.
That was Google. That was totally
Yeah.
Google. That was not unless you are Google and you're listening, then it was totally us. Go ahead. Sorry.
So these are devices that you need to use to calibrate your monitor correctly. It is sometimes shocking how off monitors are. Even really nice ones aimed at creative professionals. I'll leave out any names. Come out of the box set way too bright for photography, on average too green, and now you're in this situation where you've taken a photo, the photo on your screen looks too green. How do you know that's this photo and not the screen? And these are devices to stop you for that. So like I said, this is like putting a thermometer into the bath. This is correcting your monitor to make sure you know exactly what you're seeing. Like that math that we were just talking about with the Colorchecker passport, same math applied to the screen. And again, you don't have to do any of that math. These devices do all of it for you. I always have to assure people that they're amazingly simple to use. They're really intuitive, and it's pretty quick. And so it's not a hard habit to get into, is to profile your screen.
Right, and it's something that you should just be doing. When I worked at a studio, the way I did it was we'd come in the morning, you start your monitor up, you start your computer up, you let it warm up. I would do emails in the beginning. That would take 15 minutes, half an hour. Make sure your monitor is nice and warmed up. Then you do a calibration, and I would go get a drink. Not a coffee guy, but I've heard people like coffee. So you go, you get a coffee, you come back. It takes about 5 minutes. And there's not a lot that you, as the user, have to do. We knew when this was designed that we had to make it as simple as possible, and we had to make the user base, really accept it. And the only way to do that is to make it very easy. It's not that we dumbed it down. It's not that we left things out. It's really that easy. The software is going to run by itself and do all the things it needs to do to kind of make sure that you're starting from a good place. And actually, I think I have some screenshots. I always like to say it's the same process, just a different way of doing it. So when we did the calibration for your camera, we showed it very, very specific colors on your, through the camera. But when you do it for a monitor, obviously we're going to show those to your monitor. So let me just do.
I can talk for a sec while you
go.
Screen share. When you say coffee, I always say editing beverage of choice because they're different for every
much better.
photographer. Yeah, and as far as ease really goes, I make every intern that ends up working at our studio learn it, and I do that by just giving it to them because it's that easy, the learning curve's that quick, and it's that important a thing for starting out photographers, even as interns, to do. And I've never had one come back and complain about it being too confusing.
Right.
And so now I've trained the office to, when that little reminder comes up to profile, to just come down and take it from me, not to make me, the IT guy, come up and do it for them.
Right.
And I think that's a real testament to how easy to use this software is.
Right, and that's really what we want to do. We want to make it as easy as possible. Can you see my screen, Jeff?
I can.
Good. So we're going to make sure that on your screen we actually show you where to put it. That's pretty damn simple. And then what it's going to do is going to run through a ramping of colors. It's going to go from a white point to a black point. It's going to show red, greens, and blues, the full grayscale. And like we said with the Colorchecker passport, all it's doing, let's go back to that blue. So it's going to see this blue. You and I see blue. What it's looking for, it's 300 blue, 17 red, 45 green, that exact color number, and making sure that that color number is accurate because it knows exactly what it's looking for. So the colorimeter, the puck, is going to sit on your screen, and it's going to check for those colors, and it creates an ICC profile, and that ICC profile kind of sits on your video card. I describe it like putting a filter on a lens. So when I put a filter on a lens, I'm not changing the lens, I'm not changing the camera, but I'm changing the way I see through the camera. I'm making it, let's say it's a cooling lens, I'm making everything cooler. When I put that ICC profile on my video card, I'm not changing my video card and I'm not changing my monitor, but I am changing the way I see that monitor. And that filter, the way it acts is it's actually changing it to the ICC standard, making sure that what you see is accurate to the ICC standard. So when you start from the camera, you go to the monitor, now they're going to match each other.
Right, and it's important to note that, like I was saying before with the Passport making multiple cameras match, this makes multiple displays match. And so, especially in a studio like the one I work in, where we're even a mixed computer-wise, we're both Mac and PC. And so being able to know that everyone's monitor matches everyone else's monitor, let's just say it gets rid of a lot of the yelling over, who's right, because we know where the standard is and we know that we all match. So work group matching is really important. And also, if you're like me and you like to work with multiple monitors, being able to match them both together is another really important feature of these devices.
Right. So I think, should we cover anything else when it comes to the monitor? To me, it's always very straightforward, but I'm kind of bogged down. This is what I do literally every day. So you're more still in the world of photography.
I'll drive it home again. The only thing you really need to know is that you need it. It will pretty much do the rest. Just know that you need it. Just know that, as a constant was in the darkroom, that you need to be light sealed. Same constant applies to a monitor. It needs to be calibrated.
Right.
And there's no other really way to phrase that.
Yeah. So starting from the camera, going to the monitor, making sure that you're getting accurate colors. Obviously, there's a last step. Jeff, where do you go from the last step? What do you do next?
We're going to talk with printing.
One of my favorite topics, obviously. As you can see behind me, I do print a little bit.
Well, so there is a step sort of in the middle of the monitor and the printing, and that's color space. And that's sort of habit isn't the right word. You need to know to look ahead to where you're going, because I know I am saying this to a guy in front of a room full of prints, but not everyone is working for the end output of print.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking.
I know. I'm not that way either, but if you've been contracted by a website, you've been contracted by a website. So
very true. Very true.
There are, as you're working on your monitor, and you have to know where you're going. So we have the three main color spaces, and this is the hot button issue, discussing color space on the internet. It's
it's okay. They can't literally fight us. The Hangout is not a physical place, so we'll be okay.
So we have ProPhoto RGB, Adobe RGB, and sRGB. And see, this is where they're going to want to fight me. I'm going to tell you that for the most part, you don't have to worry about ProPhoto RGB, because there are no monitors that will accurately display it, and there's four printers in the world?
There's four. Yeah, there's four printers in the world, and I'm going to say it, none of you can afford them, because they're hundreds of thousands of dollars for a printer. And they're beautiful, and they can do amazing things, but they're generally for the print, plastics, fabrics, and dyes industry, and not for us. They make beautiful dresses, so if you do make your own dresses, hey, you have ProPhoto. Congratulations.
Exactly. But even if you are going to get to use them, they're probably not going to let you use them personally.
Right. Oh, yeah. No, totally not. Not going to happen.
There's no Kinkos with one of these things that you can come up to.
No.
So let's just, even though ProPhoto is a pretty awesome sounding color space, I mean, there's all the colors in the world that are physically manifestable, all that stuff, kind of have to let it go. So now we have Adobe RGB and we have sRGB. And so back to the printing, the good stuff. If you're going to be printing on an inkjet, Canon, Epson, HP, any of those nice photo inkjet printers, hopefully you'll be printing on some nice Ilford paper.
One might hope.
One might hope.
Yeah.
You're going to want to be in Adobe RGB. It is a bigger color space than sRGB. There's other stuff in there. Again, be mindful. This is why I'm talking about it in between monitors and printing. Be mindful of your actual monitor's capability, because a lot of monitors, the fair share of monitors, are sRGB only. So if you don't have an Adobe RGB monitor, you may not be able to use it accurately, but you should still use it if you're going to your printer. The reasoning to that is the color space is more similar to the capabilities of most inkjet printers, so there's less internal conversion the printer has to do, and that gives you more accurate results. And that's an overarching theme today is nice, accurate results. So if you know that you're going to be outputting to an inkjet print, or really ever, think you might inkjet print, you're going to want to work in Adobe RGB. Now, sorry, did you have something to add?
No, that's what we always call it, the funnel effect. You want to go from the largest color space that you can to the smallest color space that you have to. That way, eliminating colors is not as much of an option, or it's not a problem that you're going to have. You can never go back. It's kind of like getting a haircut. They can't put it back on once it's cut.
Exactly. But so the real question is, when are you going to have to funnel? So web, like I was talking before, most web browsers can't display Adobe RGB. Some can, some claim they can, but it's easier. So if you were planning on displaying your work on the internet, you're going to have to go all the way down to sRGB. Mm-hmm. And might be heartbreaking for some, but luckily, because hard drive space is so cheap nowadays, I actually keep both. If I know that I'm going to be printing, I save a nice TIFF in Adobe RGB, and I make a smaller JPEG version in sRGB for putting on my website. And unfortunately, another reason you have to funnel down to sRGB is going to be labs.